Good afternoon. I've been standing up here a few times under the glare of these lamps, so if I'm starting to look a bit red-faced, it's because I'm getting a really good artificial suntan, and I've got a bit more exposed skin than most people. Joined on stage by Cedric Comin from Ictopharma, and also by Mike Lewis from Venus Shell Systems. We go from France to Australia, so that's the global spread of this particular panel. I'm going to start off with Cedric then. You're French?
Yes.
You have 2 babies, and the third one is your business. So
Exactly.
tell us about your business, what it does and what you do.
Okay. The name of my company is Ictopharma, and in Greek, Ictio is fish and pharma is pharmaceutical. So we are a CRO, contract research organization that focus on fish health. And we help our customer to bring health product to aquaculture.
And you were telling me outside that you work with your wife. So the question is, who's the boss?
Yeah, I think I think she's the boss. No, we have 2 sides. She's a scientific director, so she take care of all the research, and I take care of all the rest, meaning the operational and the business and the financing and looking for partner and new clients.
You're also saying aside that the business has been running now for 2 years, and you're coming into your 3rd year. Where are you focusing the business, and why are you focusing the business in that particular direction?
Okay, we have 2 strategies. We have a short-term strategy and a medium-term strategy. The short-term strategy is to be a service company to our customer. So our customer are big pharmaceutical companies. They are feed additive companies and nutrition companies. Focusing on service help us to survive and to raise money in order to finance our internal research. That is our second strategy, the medium-term strategies. The medium-term strategy is to go in co-development with companies that have either technologies or ingredients which are not yet applied in aquaculture, and they want to go into aquaculture. Of course, the focus of our company is fish health, because we consider that, with our background, we consider that fish disease, shrimp disease, are one of the major bottleneck in aquaculture. So that's why it's our focus.
You're based in the Auvergne, which is a little bit distant from the sea, and you focus on freshwater and seawater fish. Why have you chosen to focus on those species, and where do you see the opportunity around those species?
Actually, presently we have facilities, freshwater facilities at the moment, and our focus is tropical fish, and the major model is tilapia. We decided to focus on tilapia because this is one of the major species raised worldwide, and it's increasing at a real fast pace. And because of that, there is a lot of more intensification of culture, and with the intensification of culture, you have more and more disease. And so you need preventive solutions. So that's why we decided strategically to focus on this fish.
It's still a young company and you're growing. What have been the particular challenges that you've faced as you've been trying to build your company? And what do you see the challenges being going forward in the future?
I think that presently our major challenge is probably the same challenge that any very young company that has some business face, which means that we have limited human resource, but we have a lot of things to do. So everybody has to do many different things, and often at the same time. So this is our present challenge. The next challenge is we want to grow into, as you mentioned before, into marine water. So to do marine facilities, and this is a very big technical challenge because we are not near the sea.
And as you grow your business, how will you meet the challenge of more business? So I think you were saying when you get into the 1s, the 2s, the 3, the 4, the 5 million euro turnover business, how do you see the scale? How are you going to manage the scale of that business as it grows? Is it more people? more facilities? What are the must-haves to be able to realize that objective?
I think both more people, more facilities, but I think that we need to be very aware not to go too much into the, we need to keep, at one point we need to keep the service to a certain level in order to grow strategically into a very selected number of projects, because we cannot do everything at the same time. So that's really a balance to find, and it's not an easy balance.
You said that you want to be the leader globally in tropical CRO work, correct?
Yeah, tropical aquaculture.
Who are the competitors, and how close are you to achieving that objective?
Well, I think presently there is not many not many competitor, but a lot of university are working on fish health or shrimp health, but their mission is not really the service, is associating student to a specific project for a specific customer. So I don't know if we have many competitor, but we don't want to say because there is no many competitor, we just stay like this. We raise our bar very high. This year we are applying for good laboratory practice certification, and we want to have strategic alliance with world-class people in order to be at this level.
You're a trained vet. You then spent time working in Merck for like 10, 13 years, something like that. And then you made a very conscious decision to step away from big corporate and go and set up your own business. So what advice would you give to anybody who's a budding entrepreneur, who's maybe frustrated by the big corporate existence? What advice would you give to them?
Just take the decision and do it.
And be happy at 40.
Actually, it's like a new life, because it's very empowering to have your own company and it's not more freedom because you have a lot of difficulties with your strategy and with your work, but it's more I think strategic freedom, more decision making. It's very nice, very empowering.
And if there's one thing that you could change, what would be that one thing that you would change?
Yeah, I think I will be closer to the sea. It's easier.
That would make good sense. Cedric, thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And turning now to Mike. Mike, before you start, I'm Scottish, not English. No. So you can't mention the rugby. It will have no effect on me at all.
Okay, good. Rugby free zone.
Exactly. Mike, just tell us a little bit about your business in Australia, what it is that you do, and the journey that you've been on to establish and set up your company.
Sure. Well, Venus Shell Systems company that I'm proud to be part of is a seaweed farmer, and I must admit that I came to BioMarine last year in Portugal. That was my first exposure to this industry, and I came here to undertake due diligence really on behalf of our investor group, and I quickly realised how little I knew about this industry. And notwithstanding that, we persevered, and I have to say, undertaking due diligence in this space is quite a challenge, because it's, first of all, certainly in the area that we're interested in, there is no defined market yet. So you have to take a fairly entrepreneurial approach, which we were happy to do. And I must admit, certainly coming to events like this, and last year in Portugal, is a lot more fun than sitting in a data room. So it's a very young and very vibrant, and I think a very exciting industry that has a great future. But it is very immature. I think I've noticed even between this BioMarine and last year that certainly the business focus, I think, has sharpened a lot. In terms of scientific discussion, I have nothing to contribute. In fact, I'm not quite sure why I'm up here on the stage now, because I really come to this event more as an observer than a participant. But I can certainly see that there's been a shift from more sort of technical scientific discussion to more commercial conversation, even in the 12 months that I've been involved. So Venus Shell Systems, we're a startup. We're growing a unique species of Australian seaweed. Anyone who knows anything about Australia knows we've got lots of unique flora and fauna, kangaroos and platypus and all sorts of weird things, and that extends below the surface of the ocean too. There's lots of quite unusual products and opportunities there. So we're, with the direction of our founder and chief scientist Pia, who most of you know, she certainly understands the science way better than any of us, and it's an exciting journey. So we're looking to develop the product and find markets, and it's quite an adventure.
And what's your own background, Mike, that brought you into this?
Yeah, I suppose I'm a serial investor, actually, or serial entrepreneur, probably more correctly, and I've made a habit, for better or worse, of investing in businesses I understand little or nothing about. What that does do is entitles me to ask dumb questions, which is pretty good. But I also think, in a more serious sense, that you approach, whether it's a new industry or an established industry, with a fresh pair of eyes, and you don't necessarily abide by the conformity of the industry. So you take a fresh look at it, and I think you probably, hopefully, see opportunities outside the normal parameters of that business. So I've been involved in digital businesses, in everything from children's clothing to retail, to all sorts of industries over my time, to international sailboarding events. There's no clear career path there at all, but it's been an interesting ride.
When you're out there looking at potential targets, potential investment opportunities, what are the criteria that you set that you're going to rate these targets against?
Yeah, I think probably what I personally look for is undeveloped opportunity, and I think this is a classic test case in that sense. Is that there's no real metrics. I mean, there are metrics, but they're not very, very well formed. And I think I like to take a more intuitive approach, where you just look at the big picture, and I think listening to the previous discussion was interesting, is that there is food security, and just the bigger picture of protein deficit worldwide is like climate change, something that some people choose not to face, but it's a reality, and the most efficient form of protein production that's untapped at the moment is from the sea, whether that be in terms of fish and crustaceans or algae, is a great opportunity, and it's going to become a real issue. And I think being an early mover, an early adopter, and trying to get in ahead of the curve is really where you try and position yourself as an investor, and that's what I like to think we've done with our investment in this industry.
Seaweed is seaweed. How do you differentiate your business? As you said, first mover, getting in before somebody else does. There's probably going to be somebody else snapping at your heels in the not too distant future. Yeah. How do you establish that space, that niche, that point of difference, that differentiator to project you and keep you moving forward?
Again, I think it's more observational than technical. And as I quickly discovered, I mean, seaweed is not an infant industry. It's a $6-7 billion industry already, but it's more in the brown seaweeds and the alginates. It sort of has a whole different path. And as I started to understand a little bit about the industry, it seems that most of the action has been either in the brown seaweeds, in the alginates, which is it's been going for quite some time now, and it's dominated, I guess, in low-cost production country, or more recently, and I think this was probably driven much more by biofuels, in the microalgae space. So where we sit, which is in the green seaweed space, and looking at particular applications that are across a whole spectrum, one of the most important things that we can do is be very focused on where we see our end markets, and look at our development pipeline and how we're going to approach the market, and try and establish a cash flow as quickly as possible. There are short and long-term lead times in developing some of these products, so it's a matter of mapping that out and trying to achieve your goals, to make financial sense. And we do understand also as a startup that we can't, I think we have a very good senior and experienced investor group who don't expect Rome to be built in a day. But you do have to demonstrate markets, and you do have to prove up theories and your economic business case. So yeah, I'm sorry, I've lost track of the question.
You're talking about the applications and where you're looking to get developed next. Can you just give us a sense on where you see those opportunities going forward?
Sure. Again, I think just listening to the conference, I mean, we probably see the opportunities all the usual suspect areas. I mean, in nutrition, in cosmetics and pharma, in potentially stock feed, and certainly one of the areas that is very exciting, although again probably further out in terms of the commercialisation horizon, is in the biomaterials and the regenerative medicine, in the some of the really high-tech areas where a couple of big scientific areas of development are coming together. There's a confluence between sort of stem cell development and some of the organic 3D printing. There's some incredible, I mean, it's almost science fiction, some of the stuff that's happening out there. And I think certainly in the space we operate, there are some compounds and some opportunities to provide raw materials into that space that are very, very exciting. So we would kind of see everything from fairly low tech to very high tech applications over the time horizon that we're looking at.
I asked you the question about what the criteria you set when you're looking at a particular target or investment. Put yourself in Cedric's shoes, and there may come a point where he's out there looking for investor money to come into his business. What criteria should an entrepreneur who's set up a company, an entrepreneur founder, be looking at selecting the investor that they bring into their business? Because it can be quite a scary thing.
True. I think the first criteria is the credibility of the person you're backing. And that, in this instance in particular, I think was fundamental to our investment decision, that whilst there was no way we were ever going to understand the science or be able to validate that, it was about just observing the person that we were backing and doing as much sort of cross-referencing in terms of the claims that were being made as to the substance, which again was difficult to do. But I think that was the first and most important decision. Then it was, as I say, I came to this event last year. It was getting a sense of what the industry, where the industry was going, and who was involved. But I have to say, it was a very informal, certainly the most informal due diligence process I've ever been through. But and I think it's also true to say with our investor group, there was a degree of altruism. It wasn't a purely hard-nosed commercial investment. I think there was a bit of saving the world about it. Not so much that, but more about looking to the future and just backing what seemed like a really credible and good idea.
And if you're the founder or entrepreneur owning the business and you're approached by an investor to invest into my business, what advice would you give to somebody like Cedric to say, well, maybe choose this one, but maybe walk away from this particular approach?
Choosing the investor?
Yeah. No, I'm talking Cedric, investor comes along to Cedric and says, hey, you've got a great business, I'd like to invest in it. How should he evaluate you as the investor? What criteria should he apply to make a smart decision?
I think that's a really good question, actually, and I've been on both sides of the ledger. I've been seeking capital as well as looking to invest, and again, this might sound very airy-fairy, but I think you've just got to believe you can work with the person. I think there's a sort of a cultural fit. I think there's a shared belief, a shared passion. I think it's really important to, like certainly with this investment, I mean, not that I can contribute much at a scientific level. Hopefully as the business evolves, we'll be able to contribute more at a commercial level, but you've got to be engaged. You've got to actually, I think passive investors and frankly unsophisticated investors, easy money is not good money, generally speaking. You've got to work hard to get the right quality of investors. And most importantly, you've just got to be able to work together. I mean, again, that's probably much a motherhood statement, but that's kind of been my driving principles.
Mike, thank you very much indeed. For somebody who said you didn't know a huge amount about the science, I think you just demonstrated you do actually know quite a lot. I've been, pretty impressive. So look, I wish you all the very best with the investment. Cedric, Mike, thank you both very much indeed.
Thanks very much.
Next week.